When nothing works anymore, how do you get cut through? In a world where there is more and more noise, it can be difficult to be heard. Many of us feel that despite producing awesome content, we're just not getting through to anyone. To capture anyone's attention requires more than good content. This is a topic I've decided to research and study closely, so in future posts I'll be sharing my findings and ideas for distributing our content so as to reach more people. Watch this space. You're not alone if you feel that your marketing isn't working. You're in good company if you actually find that your marketing isn't working anymore. Mark Schaefer, in his new book, Marketing Rebellion, observes that his chief marketing officer friends, who represent some of the biggest names in business, without exception, all feel they are falling behind on everything. They say things are just not working like they used to. These are some of the biggest marketing stars at the most famous brands. They're experienced, deeply respected executives with some of the biggest companies in the world. They have limitless resources, access to the best people, and premier agency partnerships. And yet they echoed the same desperate sentiment that many small businesses and entrepreneurs with little or no budget feel. Nothing seems to work anymore. Identifying your niche. Now, the book has interesting insights which has sparked off all sorts of ideas for my marketing that I'll be sharing. Now, for what I'm actually about to communicate, though, the part that stood out for me was Schaefer's suggestion that your marketing, to stand a chance of working, needs to make sure you accurately identify your place, what you want to be known for. He suggests to then define your space, which should be an uncontested niche to tell your story. Once you've done that, Schaefer explains how important it is to create effective content to convey your message and build an actionable audience. I'll be working on these elements over the coming months. It's about much more than just generating good content. Creating more than a brand online course. Now, when I recently created my new online course to help businesses position or reposition their brands, I was able to reposition the Azrites business in the process. At the time, I hadn't read Schaefer's book. My place, what I want Azrites and myself to be known for, is branding and trademarks, branding and copyright, branding and intellectual property, as opposed to just trademarks or copyright or intellectual property legal protection. Copyright, trademarks, intellectual property. Now, as an intellectual property law firm, Azrites is currently positioned to deal with the legal side of branding, trademarking, copyright, and intellectual property. But it hasn't previously provided branding services. Now, due to our repositioning, it does provide branding services. So we'll be making various changes to the website so that in future it's quite clear to site visitors that Azrites also offers branding. Drawing on my 15 plus years of running a business, I'm well placed to support businesses with their branding. I've studied marketing mainly because it totally absorbs me as a subject. I read lots of marketing books, attend many marketing and social media related courses, and so it's a subject I feel comfortable helping clients with. My next book will be on branding. What branding isn't. Now, unfortunately, there's a widespread misconception that branding is all about a logo, a visual identity. I've experienced branding of that type firsthand on 2 occasions, both in my own businesses and when supporting branding projects, helping agencies with name clearance or advising on other aspects of intellectual property. The first experience I had personally with branding didn't work out so well because I hadn't thought through my brand for myself first before approaching designers. The second experience worked mainly because I'd done all the business thinking beforehand for myself. Branding services combined with IP. Now, the fact that I will be able to combine branding with intellectual property is what brings real value to the niche Azrites will henceforth occupy. The disciplines of branding and intellectual property are so closely intertwined as to be inseparable, yet intellectual property is not well understood by the branding industry as a whole. Problems when branding and IP are not aligned. Now, I see many problems when branding is divorced from intellectual property. The person who loses out when branding and intellectual property are not aligned is the business owner, and often they're quite unaware that their identity is the root cause of the problem. When certain issues arise in their business, such as a competitor muscling in on their turf, they don't realize that the name they're using is the reason they're vulnerable and unable to fight back to stave off the unfair competition. Separating the two disciplines doesn't generally give the best results. Bedding in the new positioning for Azrites. Once this positioning is bedded into the Azrites business and our website, it means that Azrites will occupy a unique place. It will be the first law firm that offers branding services to its clients in addition to intellectual property protection. Azrites will deliver some of the branding services through its sister company, Azrites International Limited. The reason for repositioning. Now, when I initially set up Azrites back in 2005, intellectual property law firms were few and far between. So IP was a good niche positioning for my firm to adopt. At the time, in 2005, solicitors tended to handle litigious matters, copyright and IP strategy, while patent and trademark attorney firms dealt with registration of trademarks, designs and patents. I thought I was being different in offering the A to Z of IP services, a full registration, litigation and drafting service. However, this positioning soon looked run-of-the-mill as the division between the two professions began to break down. Patent and trademark firms soon began offering litigation work, while law firms delved into trademark registration work. Dozens of other IP firms. So one reason the IP niche needed to change was this. A few years after Azrites was founded, dozens of intellectual property law firms began sprouting up virtually overnight. Most of them now handle registration work. And while IP was still a specialist subject back in 2005, it's increasingly ceased to be niche. The subject is now quite mainstream as non-specialist law firms such as company commercial lawyers offer intellectual property work, including trademark registration. So I could see the writing on the wall. It was time to make a change to our niche positioning. The decision to encompass branding within our niche made complete sense from many perspectives. So why include branding services? Now, while the traditional path for law firms is to offer the full range of legal services as they expand and grow, the most important consideration for me was my own interests. I've always wanted to do more than just legal work. That's why I became an in-house lawyer at Reuters. I wanted to be involved in the commercial side of life. to advise on more than just law. The branding industry currently comprises a plethora of design-related companies, essentially offering visual design identity work. Some of them delve into the business side, but essentially the problem they have is that they're running to a tight timescale, and therefore their clients don't have all the time they may need in order to properly think through the business issues that arise from the branding exercise. So there is a high risk of simply ending up with pretty designs, as I found to my cost after my first branding exercise. The need for more education, I believe that's what is needed more of in the market. Educational providers to help businesses to properly think through their branding before turning to designers for their visual identity work. The current branding landscape is dominated by designers, and there are many law firms who offer intellectual property services to support branding agencies. However, none of them is helping businesses with branding support. So nobody currently occupies the position of offering branding along with trademark, or branding along with copyright, or branding as well as intellectual property advice and protection until now. That is the position As-Rights will occupy. As mentioned, the two disciplines are integrated with each other. Branding professionals who do not work with intellectual property lawyers are insufficiently aware of this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so common to see brand identities based around descriptive names that are incapable of being uniquely owned. Nor would it be so common to see brands that are unprotected because the branding agency didn't discuss legal protection when quoting for the design work. Why descriptive names are a problem? Now, any name may be registered with a logo, and many are. However, that doesn't give the client any protection over the name if the name is too descriptive to function as a trademark. When a name can't be uniquely owned, the client can experience a number of problems. Every business must use a name that can function as a trademark, that is, a word mark, because having a unique right to a name is what enables the business to protect its revenues. It always saddens me when a client comes to us because a Me Too competitor has muscled in on their turf. If the client has a descriptive name, then there's little they can do to prevent the competitor stealing their market share. A passing off action against such a competitor is really throwing good money after bad. Although, unfortunately, I've seen many law firms take on cases like this. If you can't uniquely own your brand name, then you're extremely vulnerable. Branding and intellectual property are connected. Branding and intellectual property thinking need to go hand in hand. It's no good creating the brand and then leaving the client to seek out lawyers to help them protect it. By offering both branding and intellectual property insights, I can help clients in unique ways. Firstly, to identify a suitable niche and then get their brand strategy and name sorted. And once all that is clear, then a design service would be appropriate, an area that As-Rights has no intention currently to occupy. I'm actually looking to use designers, developers, social media marketers that belong to reputable bodies who have codes of conduct to protect consumers, or we may create our own code of conduct. Mistakes that people make. I see many mistakes around branding that I myself made when I first set up in business, such as paying far too much for branding, which ultimately just consisted of some pretty designs. I didn't know enough about business at the time and effectively abdicated responsibility for branding my business to a graphic design agency simply because I didn't realize that branding was about much more than visual design work. Much of the thinking about branding needs to come from the business owner, and these things take time. So new businesses should avoid spending large sums of money on logo and other designs until they're clear about their business brand strategy. So in conclusion, it's essential to have access to deep understanding of both intellectual property and business when you're creating or fine-tuning your brand. Protecting your ideas and IP as you develop your positioning, name, tagline, and business plan is what branding involves. Therefore, these are best dealt with together before seeking help with visual identity work. This is the new As Rights niche. You'll find plenty of intellectual property law firms and plenty of branding agencies, but nothing that combines branding with trademarks, branding with copyright, or branding with IP, yet these belong together. I feel strongly about this subject because it's important to me to impact, inspire clients and teach them what is involved to brand themselves so they can make their positive contribution to the world.